Welcome to the second half of the video. First half is in the link below or in a pop-up out here. We're just going to jump right back in to try and fix that P1498 and the misfire in cylinder 4. Okay, another weekend, another quest to get this thing running properly. It's running properly. And I had one of those moments this week. And it was, did I put the second hose clamp on the bypass valve to the supercharger plastic thing? And I thought to myself, I don't remember ever tightening that. And it turns out I just never put it on. So I'm hoping that that is the cause of the vacuum leak. There's one other culprit, which is the vacuum tube on the front of the supercharger, and I have a new part for that if needed. But we're gonna try the bypass valve one first because I can do that without going into full front end service mode, and that'll save me some time. So I'm gonna try that one first. If that doesn't work, then we'll do the vacuum line on the front of the supercharger. Yeah, that's the culprit right there. Just no hose clamp at all. Okay, so I had planned ahead for this. Reaching in and hitting the plunger on this. It sort of comes as two, kind of stuck. I heard this, it's used, but it's got nice smooth action in it. So that just arrived today, so I'm probably gonna put that one back in. And if I can fit it, then I'll use this hose. Yeah, so all new stuff here. Thought I was done putting new parts on this car. You've seen me take apart and put together the intercooler and the airbox and all that a bunch of times, so I'm not gonna show that. What do we have? We have the OEM intercooler boots, which are changed it from the other ones. New coils, new coil pack and spark plug cables. It's been relocated, so it's not touching the intercooler. We got a new gasket between the bypass valve and the intercooler horn. New bypass valve, new coupler, extra hose clamp. Yeah, hopefully this fixes the vacuum leak, because if not, then I have to put it back into front end service mode, and it's probably going to be the supercharger, either the big piece of plastic or the gasket isn't sitting right, or it's the vacuum line that has a little crack in it. So gonna clear some codes and try it again. So I just let it run, get up to temperature, and let it run for 5 or 10 minutes. Normally in that time it would throw out both codes. It's still not idling entirely smooth, but there's a clacking, but I know that's the flywheel, but I'm not sure if it's that sort of throws off the whole engine. So I guess there's only one thing to do, which is take it up for a test drive, which means I have to put the bumper back on. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. With everything back together, we have another failure. I drove for maybe 30-35 kilometers, stop and go traffic, accelerating pretty hard, nothing over 4,000 RPM, nothing really past half throttle. I could hear the supercharger whining a lot more than it was before, so I think that bypass valve getting sort of stuck was preventing it from, I don't know, building boost in the past, but now I can really hear it, so that's good. So that's definitely fixed. But after 30-35 kilometers, I got the vacuum leak, the 1498 code, which I stopped in a parking lot and cleared. The car was running fine. It wasn't juddering or anything, no problems. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, another 10 minutes or so, and misfire, cylinder 4. Same one as before, where the traction control comes on and then the engine light comes on. So I'm not really sure what to do now. I'm going to have to go and check that vacuum line, check the coupler that goes into the intercooler, maybe buy a new one just in case, but I think they're pretty expensive. And then I'm gonna replace the map sensors just because, why not? Everything else has been replaced, why not replace those? So that's it for tonight. Okay, new day, P1498, misfire in cylinder 4. Today we're going into front end service mode to try and find the vacuum leak, which I hope fixes the vacuum leak and the misfire. But yeah, this is a sort of bigger undertaking. A lot more stuff has to come off the car to get access to the front of the supercharger and everything. So yeah, let's get to it. Here we are in full front end service mode. Still a little bit of coolant dripping. This is the main culprit, I'm thinking, which is the supercharger tube. I have a new one on order because everybody said that they leak everywhere anyway, but it's going to take a while and they're expensive, so that's annoying. The gasket inside is brand new. I was told, or I read that it's better to put it on the supercharger than put the horn on, rather than putting it in the horn and sliding it on. I don't know which one I did, to be honest. And then the other culprit is the actual vacuum line that goes in here. You'll see, I'll zoom in here, the red clip is broken, so it's possible that this isn't forming an exact vacuum. And then the other one is possibly the fuel regulator up here, fuel pressure regulator, the vacuum line that's under there. So we're gonna go through all of these individually. Okay, with the metal ring out, I'm hoping I can just pry the rest out. Oh, there we go. And there's the rest of it. Damage to the inside, some. That's pretty messy, actually. Okay, so I obviously hit the side a whole bunch of times, so don't do that. I read a thread on how to do this, and I was using what I thought was a delicate touch, and obviously I nicked the side a whole bunch of times. So I'm gonna put the new one in, but I'll put some like I don't know, RTV, the same stuff I use between the engine parts around it, just to seal it in a bit. But this is what mine looks like when it came out. And I can tell you that the best results I had was a tiny flathead screwdriver. All the chisels and everything were too much, but this tiny flathead screwdriver just tapping a little bit gave me the best results. And I think if I'd started with this, my results would have been way better. So use a tiny screwdriver. You saw there that I nicked the side of the supercharger about 100 times, so be a lot more careful than I was. But to get the new valve back in, or new connector back in, I'm gonna use gasket maker just around the outside before I push it in. Just a little tiny bit. Just a tiny bit, enough to cover the little notches. And this just goes in like that. Pushing it in, easy. So if you didn't mark yours up like I did, that's actually a fairly easy install. So to review, tap it with a tiny screwdriver until it cracks, and it'll start to spin eventually, and you can just keep taking little pieces off. The other write-up I saw where when he did that, it split in two, but mine was almost like every time I tapped it, a little piece broke off. So it was just came out, it was so brittle. Be up to you. So really be careful, more careful than I was, but tap it out slowly and yeah, you should be good. Okay, supercharger vacuum connector replaced. Next up is the vacuum line that runs between the fuel regulator and the supercharger, I think. The one that goes in the bottom of the fuel regulator. These injectors just got refurbished. Well, they got refurbished when I was planning on fixing this the first time. And okay, so there's number 4. It actually looks fine. But number 3, number 2, and number 1 are all thrashed. What the heck? Maybe they dried out from sitting on my bench for so long after I had them refurbished. Okay, I've been prepared for a lot of stuff here. So luckily I have all new upper and lower gaskets for the injectors. And now for something that you're probably gonna find comical. And that's this. That is JB Weld plastic weld putty placed over all the seams. I have a new one on the way, but they're $200. So I thought I'd try this in the meantime because I tried to buy the cheapest possible place, so it's probably gonna take forever to get here. With the hope that if there was a leak in this, that it is gonna be sealed by this. So I just put this on maybe 20 minutes ago. It's getting harder, so I'll leave it another few hours and I'll put that back on. And here's the ugliness of it installed. Sorry, but desperate times. It's back together. It's been a long day. So took it apart, put it in the front end service mode, changed the vacuum line on the fuel regulator, changed the gaskets on the fuel injectors, changed the gasket on the intercooler inlet pipe. And I should note that although this is brand new, I had pinched it or something. So there was a little bit. There, so that's brand new, but I put it, even a new one. I put a newer one in. What else did I do? Oh, obviously I patched up the intercooler pipe, reseated everything, tightened it all up, checked the vacuum lines to make sure they were holding air. And I'm not embarrassed to say that I just blew into them. So the one that goes into the MAF, holding air. The one that's going into the valve cover, holding air. So if this doesn't do it, I'm gonna be very disappointed. But also, I really won't know unless the intercooler pipe is just broken somewhere I didn't see it. But you saw how much putty I put onto it. So if this doesn't do it, I know this is the sacrilege, but I may have to bring it somewhere to have them figure it out. Anyway, let's start it and see how she looks. So from here, you can probably hear it sounds fine. I mean, there's a clacking, but that's the flywheel. It seems smooth. So let me take you around the other side. Okay, here's the exhaust. I mean, you won't be able to see it very well with the light, but just listen. Something's not right. I just spent all day pulling it all apart, putting it back together. Hasn't misfired yet, but I got the same P1498 code, and it's just the exhaust isn't quite right. The idle isn't right. So I don't know at this point. It could be okay, so maybe the map sensor's dead. Maybe the map sensor's no good. That wouldn't account for the vacuum. Maybe that supercharger tube is just dead even though I patched it. Yeah, I think it's time to call in some reinforcements. I'm gonna have to bring it somewhere. Well, for sure I'm gonna need a smoke test somewhere. So I'm gonna have to find somewhere that'll do that for me. Yeah, so I'm gonna try and drive it tomorrow, but I have a feeling that misfire is gonna come back. It's the next day. I was pretty down yesterday, but then, thinking about it, I had to realize that the putty on the supercharger inlet was probably never going to work. The car runs and drives, which is positive. I do have that vacuum leak. I don't know if I still have the misfire. I'm just gonna take it out again. So yeah, overall I'm still okay, because really all I need is a smoke test to see where the leak is. I do have that new inlet on its way. So I'm gonna take the car out, enjoy it, and I'll just have to drive and clear the codes every 20 minutes. If I'm getting a lot of misfires, I won't drive as much because I don't want to lean out or cause any damage. I was thinking that the misfire number 4 in the worst case scenario is a bad ring, which would be a disaster, but the fact that it feels smooth and fine for so long, like for 20-30 minutes at a time, and then misfires, and then if I keep driving, it comes back, like it smooths out again. The engine light stays on, but the car smooths out again. So I really don't think it's a ring. I do think it's a vacuum leak somewhere that's causing all of this, I hope. So yeah, I'm just gonna go for a drive. I'm in a much better mood today. I just brought this to a local shop that specializes in German cars, and I had them do a smoke test on it, and they said, yes, you do have a leak, and it is at the intake manifold. They checked it and they said one of the bolts was a little loose, but even after tightening it, that there was still a leak, and so it was probably the gasket. Now I just obviously put that new head in, and I didn't take the whole manifold out. I just sort of pulled it back and put it back on. So it's very possible it got pinched or damaged or something while I was doing that. Now all I have to do is replace the intake manifold gasket, which shouldn't be too crazy. And luckily, since I had to buy a bunch of different kits for various gaskets, and one of them came with an extra gasket, I have one handy. This also means that I can switch away from the OEM intercooler and back to my cool black one with the cool blue boots. Yeah, I just have to figure out if I have to go full front end service mode or what with this, but that's to figure out right now. If the supercharger blocks it, that's a way bigger problem, and I think it's going to. I do have a secret weapon though. Okay, I might be able to save myself the full front end service mode because of the upgraded bolt that I used, which were studs. I converted to studs, and they have a little hex in the top so I can take the studs out. That means I don't have to pull the supercharger off and everything to get in there. I can pull the studs out, pull the gasket out, and then put the studs back in. So this is probably gonna save me a lot of time. Okay, another weekend, but I think we're in good shape here. Last night, just quickly, I was able to get out most of the studs, but just that last one that jams up against the supercharger over on the left-hand side is where the problem is. I'll show you. So as you can see, the studs are out here, everywhere, except for that one way down there. And I was kind of worried that I wouldn't be able to get that out, and then it would stop me and have to pull the whole front end off. I knew it's just a 3mm hex would do it, so I just went to the store and started looking around for a super long 3mm hex and found these, which are actually the ball joint 3mm hex extended. This is gonna be my secret weapon. Booyaka. Oh my God. Okay, so that's one intake off, intake manifold. While I was working on the car, I bought various gasket kits for the rebuild. And I think you'll probably recognize this as the intake manifold gasket. And everywhere you look, this is what it looks like on all the websites. And yet, mine looks like this, which is like a weird multi-layer, like what? Here is the gasket stuck on the edge over by the 4th cylinder. It's probably where obviously we had some problems. And it's kind of all over this thing. I'm gonna have to like polish it. So first off, if you haven't or you're rebuilding, I would suggest switching back to those, or switching to those studs so you can get the intake out, because not only can you change this gasket, you can also get at the knock sensor, right? Which is nice. But look at this. This is just like, I guess it's metal. It's kind of metal, but it's got like a paper film over it and it's falling apart. It's brand new. I guess it would have come in one of the kits. I mean, who sourced this and who put this in my engine? Obviously I did, but why did I do that? I guess I probably just was grabbing gaskets from the kit and that looked like the right gasket. But yeah, it's completely fallen apart. And like, there's pieces falling off of it. I don't get it. Like it's the same as the metal one, but it's thicker too, but it's just falling apart. So I'm not surprised at all that this caused the problem. I hope this is the problem, but that's not surprising. Like, again, this is brand new. I don't, like, maybe it's a different style that I'm just not familiar with, but I couldn't find this anywhere when I was looking specifically for it online. But yeah, it's probably just something I'm not aware of, but also, why did it disintegrate? Maybe it's a single use and I took the head on and off and you reused it. I mean, I guess they're all single use, but still. Okay, time to put the intake back in with the proper gasket. I dropped it. Okay, in the setback here, I dropped the bolt, or I dropped the nut that goes onto the bolt, and I had paper towel under it, or like shop towel under it, and it still managed to just drop somewhere where it's seems to be behind the supercharger. So it's like the gods want me to take the supercharger off, but I don't want to. I don't have to. It's just an M6 nut, so it's not that big a deal. It's just really, really annoying. I think I'm gonna leave it there. Shoot. (10:30, 11) on a Friday. I'm not looking to take a drive tonight, but I am looking for smooth idle. After all that, if there's no smooth idle, if I still get the vacuum leak, I'm gonna be pretty disappointed. So once again, I'm clearing all the codes. Now I'm gonna clear all the adaptations. I'm just gonna make sure the fuel gets pressurized. Turn it on and off a couple times. Oh, let's hope for the best. Come on, you bastard. It feels much smoother. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it feels so much better. Ah, finally. Oh, now I wanted to go drive it, but there's no bumper or anything on it, so I'll wait till tomorrow. Okay, bad news is that I think I can hear that bolt that I dropped, or the nut I dropped rattling. That's not great, but it's running so much smoother. And actually, because it's not vibrating so much, the flywheel chatter is way, way, way down. Still got a little bit of a dip after, like when I rev it. Installed. Okay, well, that probably means I still have a tiny vacuum leak, but not the intake gasket, like not before when it was misfiring constantly. I'm gonna call it for tonight, and I'll drive it around tomorrow. Here we are the next day. I've got the new intercooler back on. I've got the bumper back on, put it all back together. What do I know? The idle felt good yesterday. So that's my main concern. No more misfires, no more P1498 for that same reason. If there's another P1498, then fine. But mostly I'm concerned about the rough idle and the misfire, and those seem to be gone for now, but I haven't driven it yet. It did stall yesterday when I was just letting it idle, then I revved it up a lot and let it drop. It was stalled. So that could be a vacuum leak. That could be the fuel pressure regulator. That could be there's an evap control unit that could be. It seems to be this is a more common problem for people that are driving every day with it. So I'm not concerned about that. Today, all I'm worried about is no more misfire and a smooth acceleration, smooth idle. Okay, like before, I'm just going to drive in increasingly larger circles. quiet at lights. The idle is smooth and quiet at lights. The drone at about 3,000 RPM is not good. I don't think it wouldn't be good on like a long trip just coasting at about 3,000 RPM because it sort of reverberates inside the cabin, but outside of that the noise isn't too bad. Yeah, so I'm gonna call that a success. Let me show you now what the idle was like before. And what it's like now. Like such a huge difference, and that obviously that intake manifold gasket was a problem. Things that I know are still wrong with it. There's an oil leak somewhere. I don't know where, but I saw there's an oil spot under the car. So I'm not sure where that would be. All the gaskets are new. Maybe something's not tightened right. I'm not sure. There is a coolant leak, I believe. It's hard to tell if there's a coolant leak or if it's just like going down a little bit as I've been driving it around and testing things. But if there is a coolant leak, I'm going to blame the cables or the hoses that I made. But small coolant leak, small oil leak, I'm not concerned about those right now. What I'm concerned about is that it feels smooth. It feels good. So I'm really happy now. Now I feel like it's done. Finally. I was a little worried there with that misfire on cylinder 4. I really had a lot of paranoid thoughts about somehow I put the rings in wrong, or I had hit the valves when I was putting the head on or something and bent one or done something. So I'm really happy to find out that it's that intake manifold gasket. What's next? Well, the engine rebuild, when I first put the engine back into the car and turned the car back on, the odometer read 159,708 kilometers. Now the clutch break-in is 500 miles. I think that's a good break-in for the engine as well. So I haven't been going over half throttle and nothing past 4,000 RPM. Well, now it really is just a matter of, yes, I'm gonna try and fix the leaks, but I can drive it, it feels good. But I need to get to 160,513 kilometers, and that's the end of the break-in period. Now the Guest, obviously, the moving goalpost was always this summer or last summer or whatever it was. I always had goals to get it running. Well, the first day of fall was 2 days ago, but you saw it running before that. So I'm going to call that a win. 2 days into fall and I've got it running smooth, drivable, feeling great. So that's a win for me. So because I won, you have to like and subscribe. That's just how it goes. So I've lost track of how much footage I've shot since the shakedown started. It's a lot, so hopefully the video isn't too long for you. And I guess I'm just super happy for it to be running. I can't believe it's running, actually. So if you've watched this whole video and you've watched all my other videos, I really appreciate it. And until then, I'll just be driving around to hit 160,513 kilometers. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.